triumphant glimpse of the process to excavate fallen soldiers of the Korean War. I'm glad that Min-gyeong could finally put his father to rest, and I thought that the beginning was perfectly timed, well introduced, and I loved the sound of the choir in the background as well. The sound mix in general was well suited to its content. Videos and media used, such as photographs, were well transitioned as well. And then overall, it's just an honor to those fallen soldiers of Arrowhead Hill.
This is a really interesting and rich part of history, and that was uncovered for us as the space itself was being unearthed. There's really intimate focus on the sun's connection to it, and I love when a piece can be a larger, broader part of history, but you can also connect the viewer in by honing in on one specific intimate storyline. I thought this really captured the sacrifice and the sacrifice from the soldiers and the gravity of this time. It was extremely a humanizing piece, which is important because sometimes war gets caught up in the spectacle, and I feel like they didn't do that. In some of the editing, there was some abruptness, but I felt it captured the chaos and the still unknowns about that time.
I think any form of media that can help draw some attention and paint a picture of the Korean War and everything that's been going on there for the last 70 years in a humanizing way, such as this one does, is what is paramount here. And in that regard, this documentary delivers what it promises. It tells you about it. It gives you some stories, gives you really human interest points it touches on, and gives you sort of a broad picture of the scope of everything that's been going on
and
there.
We really see an aspect of the Korean culture that is not always made much to light in modern media. We see grief. We see a lot of emotion, external emotion and grief from a culture that we've become accustomed to understanding is quite kind of tough and resilient and has a certain sense of formality to them. But we see the humanity and the inhumanity of war both portrayed in this documentary piece. And we see, I loved the one cryon used that said, a 69-year-old son meets a 23-year-old father. That's really an amazing and quite to the point, almost poetic way of putting what these reunions are like, to find, your parents' remains after over 60 years. It's an emotion that's hard to describe, but is visualized quite beautifully, and emotionally so in this piece. So very well done.
I really liked this. I liked how it wove history in with like a story about like some of the soldiers that had been identified and kind of bringing them home and the impact that had. But I like that it was both, that you didn't just get the kind of personalized story, that you also got why that story was as powerful as it was and why it made the kind of impact that it did, because you had the history backing it up. So I really appreciated that.
It's an amazing film. We learned so much and it's so informative. I can only imagine the hurt and pain that these families have to go through when their family members leave to join the army and fight. And it must have been an amazing feeling for the main character to receive his father's remains and be able to have that closure and peace that he wasn't able to have when he was younger, when his father first left to join the war. The film also shines light on the way soldiers' families feel dealing with losing their loved ones. And it's important to hear their stories because they are like the silent warriors that we don't usually hear from. And this film really gave them a voice, which is definitely needed.
A nice production of a documentary, strong storyline, intelligently pulled together. I thought they did a great job editing and pulling the footage to tell the story, and thought it was quite impactful and heartbreaking that in this day and age there's still bodies not recovered from such a horrific time.
I really like this one, and I have a very deep respect for soldiers in war, and to see this, it really hit home for me. So I think it was really well done. The story of it was very, very well done.
I agreed with a lot of the decisions made. I feel like it told a very compelling story, very interesting, and very well informed. Shot well edited. I feel like that's the biggest takeaway for me is because there's so much mixed media and archival footage that the editing was really strong and put it over the top.